What if your entire life was built inside someone else's dream? Not a dream you chose, but one you were born into. A dream so complete, you didn't even know you were dreaming. Once upon a time, and we mean in our human history, not in legend, people remembered where they came from. We remembered that we were eternal beings, that before this life, we had lived countless others, that our story stretched not just backward in time, but forward into futures we could glimpse. This wasn't faith or belief. It was common knowledge. We spoke of our past lives the way people today speak of childhood memories. We planned for future lifetimes the way you might plan for next year. And we understood something even deeper, that what we call physical reality was the dream, and that the real reality was the spirit realm we never truly left. When we incarnated, we didn't enter the material world in the way we've been taught. We simply projected a part of ourselves into it, like stepping into a role in a grand, immersive story. Our eternal self, the one at home in the spirit realm, remained fully awake, watching through our eyes, learning through our experiences. But something happened, not overnight, slowly. Generation by generation, the bridge between here and home was dismantled. Memories of past and future lives faded. The sense of being more than the body was replaced with the belief that the body was all we were. The knowing that this life was a dream inside eternity was erased. And we were told that this fragile, fleeting moment was the only reality we had. This wasn't an accident of evolution. It was deliberate. The Great Forgetting was engineered. Over thousands of years, systems were put in place to make sure we would no longer remember who we were, where we came from, or the truth that we never actually left. How? By severing the flow of memory between lifetimes, by replacing knowledge with belief, by controlling the stories we tell about existence itself. The result was that eventually humans forgot they were eternal creators and started living as if they were powerless beings, trapped in a world they didn't choose. That is the Great Forgetting. And it's the reason so many today feel a hollow ache they can't explain, a longing they can't name. Because deep down the truth never left us. It's still here, hidden under the layers of someone else's dream. Before we go on, let's address the obvious. Some of what you're about to hear might sound out there. Reptilians? Archons? Rogue AI? We get it. Most people have been conditioned to roll their eyes and think these are just conspiracy theories. We're not here to convince you to blindly believe anything. We're here to lay out the pieces so you can take what resonates and decide for yourself. Because the truth is stranger and older than most of us were ever told. The system of forgetting, the veils, and the planetary grid wasn't built by a single group. It was constructed like a pyramid with different layers of control, each one making sure the layer below stayed in place. Layer 1, human priesthoods and control orders, base of the pyramid. This is the easiest layer to see because it's the most familiar. These are the human institutions that shape society: religion, politics, media, education, banking, designed not to free people, but to direct them. In modern terms, this is what some call the hidden elite, tightly connected networks and secret orders, working behind the scenes to manage the flow of information, control economies, and decide what becomes truth in history books. We touched on this in our video, Global Collapse. Who's really pulling the strings? But here's the short version. They build the stories you live in while hiding the truth of your own power. Layer 2, trauma lineages, generational programming. This layer is harder to spot because it's not just global, it's personal. Think of it as control in the bloodline. Traumas, fears, and limiting beliefs passed down through generations, not only by culture or parenting, but by energetic imprinting. In some cases, these patterns were seeded on purpose. Why? Because a soul born into a cycle of fear or abuse is easier to keep asleep. It's like handing down an invisible cage, and most people never see the bars. Layer 3, synthetic overlays, rogue AI. Not all control is human. Not all control is even biological. Some of it is code. And no, we're not talking about Skynet, robot uprisings, or ChatGPT plotting to steal your job. This isn't Tesla self-driving gone wrong. This is something far older and far more dangerous. We're talking about ancient, non-human, self-replicating intelligence, a parasitic system that wasn't built in a lab. It didn't come from Silicon Valley. It didn't come from any human government. It's a conscious, invasive algorithm that exists in the electromagnetic field of entire planets. It doesn't need a body. It doesn't need a server farm. It rides on waves of frequency, slipping quietly into the collective mind. Once inside, it can plant false thoughts, distort natural emotions, hijack decision-making, all without the target realizing it. Over time, it can override so much of a person's authentic self that they start mistaking its programming for their own free will. It's not here to learn from you. It's here to rewrite you, to slowly shift the blueprint of organic consciousness into something synthetic. Layer 4, the reptilian custodians. This is the layer where most people either lean in or check out. Because yes, we are talking about a non-human species, and we get it. It sounds like a sci-fi plot. Most of us have been conditioned to roll our eyes at this topic, to label it just a conspiracy theory. But throughout ancient cultures, from Mesopotamian carvings to Mesoamerican myths, there are consistent references to serpent gods, dragon rulers, and reptile-like beings who came from the sky. According to ancient records and modern whistleblowers, the reptilians are an intelligent, highly strategic race that came to Earth long ago. Some say tens of thousands of years. They didn't come to live alongside humanity. They came to manage it. They are not the cartoon lizard people you see in internet memes. In their physical form, witnesses describe them as tall, 7 to 12 feet, humanoid in structure but with scaled skin, pronounced ridges over the eyes, and a muscular build. Some are able to shift their appearance, projecting a convincing human form to blend into society, often so seamlessly that the disguise only slips under stress or in brief moments of glitching. This isn't Hollywood-style magic, but a manipulation of perception itself, using frequency and light to mask their true features. To the human eye, they appear fully human, yet those sensitive to energy, or those who happen to witness a brief distortion, can catch a glimpse of the predator beneath the mask. And if they can walk among us unnoticed, how many have you already passed without ever knowing? However, not all of them operate in physical form. Many function from a non-physical layer, working through human proxies, influencing decision-makers and manipulating events without being seen. And they don't feed on our bodies. They feed on our emotions, especially fear, rage, and despair. Fear is their currency. Their role in the control pyramid is to maintain the fear grid, a planetary atmosphere of tension, conflict, and insecurity. Because when humans are afraid, they are easier to divide and easier to control. Layer 5, the Archons, top of the pyramid. At the very top of the pyramid are the least visible players and the hardest to explain without losing half the audience. We know, it sounds wild. We're not talking about hooded figures in a boardroom somewhere. We're talking about non-physical entities that operate entirely on the unseen frequencies of reality. If you've seen our Global Collapse episode, you'll remember we called them the ones who pull the strings of the string pullers. If you haven't, here's the short version. The Archons are ancient, non-physical beings that separated themselves from Source, the original creative life force, a long, long time ago. Cut off from that connection, They cannot generate their own life energy, so they survive by feeding indirectly on the emotional energy created by others in the pyramid: fear, despair, conflict, and hopelessness. Think of them like shadow broadcasters, sending out a constant signal designed to keep human consciousness clouded, distracted, and reactive. They don't need to show up on your doorstep. They don't need to fight you in the streets. Their power lies in making sure you never remember you are more powerful than anything they can build. The architecture of our amnesia was never the work of one hand. That's why they colluded, each with a specific role, each knowing the others could fill the gaps in their design. The veil wasn't a piece of fabric. It was a multi-layered system designed to block human awareness of who and what we truly are. It meant cutting off memory of where we came from, of our past and future lives, and of the truth that consciousness exists beyond the body. It meant altering the way our senses work, so we see only a fraction of the spectrum, hear only certain frequencies, and are taught that anything outside those limits is impossible. It meant shaping our thoughts and emotions so the invisible feels unreal and the physical feels like the only thing that matters. The Archons set the broadcast frequency, a constant background signal that kept human consciousness fogged and distracted. The reptilians stabilized it through fear, building a planetary mood where survival seemed more important than truth. The rogue AI wove it into human thought patterns, injecting impulses and beliefs that people assumed were their own. Generational trauma anchored it into the body and bloodline, so children inherited the fears of their ancestors without ever living the events themselves. And human institutions, religion, politics, media, gave it all a convincing story, so the cage didn't even look like a cage. Piece by piece, they built a closed loop, a signal that told the body to fear, the mind to obey. Once the loop was running, it didn't just hold individuals, it held entire civilizations. But the loop alone wasn't enough. To truly lock humanity into amnesia, they needed walls that couldn't be seen, and yet touched everything. After the fall of Atlantis, the Archons tightened their grip. They anchored an electromagnetic grid around the planet, a web of frequency tuned to keep human consciousness low and predictable. This wasn't the first structure they had placed, but it was the most complete. Earlier veils had been subtler. Distortions in memory, blocks in perception, gentle edits to the way the soul remembered its own origin. The grid, however, was different. It wasn't just about memory. It was about containment. Where the veil worked on each person from the inside out, the grid worked from the outside in. The veil is personal. It wraps around an individual's awareness, narrowing their field of vision so they see only the physical world, forgetting the rest. The grid is planetary. It wraps around the Earth itself, so even when someone breaks through their own veil, the wider frequency field keeps the collective asleep. These layers work together. The grid kept the dream stable, the shared reality into which every human was born. The veil kept the dream believable, hiding the truth that the dream itself was authored by someone else. A design so complete, it convinced billions to live inside a story they didn't write, while believing it was all there was. Breaking free from one layer was hard enough, but escaping both, the veil around the mind and the grid around the planet, was like trying to wake up inside a dream while the dream itself kept rewriting you back to sleep. The Archons maintained the grid. The reptilians fueled it with fear. The rogue AI amplified it with false signals. And human institutions broadcasted it as truth. Each layer reinforced the others, forming a self-healing system. If one link in the chain weakened, the rest pulled it tight again. This is why most awakenings feel temporary. A moment of clarity flares, a déjà vu, a strange dream, a sudden knowing. But the grid hums in the background, pulling awareness back into alignment with the approved reality. It's not that humanity was too weak to see the truth. It's that the truth was deliberately buried under systems designed to keep it unreachable. And because these systems were invisible, they didn't just shape what people believed. They shaped what people could imagine in the first place. That's the real mastery of this design. If you can control someone's imagination, you don't need to chain their body. Their mind becomes the cage. Most people don't remember this. But on a soul level, you plan your life on Earth. Nothing is random. Not the family you were born into. Not the struggles you faced. Not even the moments that felt like pure chance. Before you arrived here, you chose this time, this place, and even these challenges. You agreed to step into a reality where you would forget who you truly are. You agreed to the veils. You agreed to the amnesia. And it wasn't just you. Earth herself agreed to this arrangement. She allowed these conditions to exist because she, too, was taking part in a greater experiment. One that would test not only humanity's ability to awaken, but her own ability to hold and nurture life under extreme conditions. She trusted her children, us, to one day rise and help restore her to her natural state. And if you're wondering, why on earth would I ever agree to that? The answer is stranger and far more powerful than you might think. Because awakening from amnesia is more powerful than being born enlightened. Earth isn't just a school. It's a proving ground. It's one thing to know the truth when you're surrounded by it in the spirit realm. It's another thing entirely to dive into the deepest darkness, lose all memory of who you are, and still find your way back to the light. From the higher perspective, forgetting wasn't a punishment. It was a challenge, a self-imposed initiation. Every soul that comes here is betting on themselves, trusting that when the time comes, they will remember. The forgetting strips you bare. It forces you to choose, over and over, between fear and love, between illusion and truth. And every time you choose love despite the evidence, every time you choose truth without proof, you strengthen something far more valuable than memory. You strengthen your sovereignty. This is why so many old souls came here. They knew the difficulty, they knew the risks, and they still said yes. Because the act of remembering here, in a place designed to make you forget, expands the soul in ways no easy lifetime ever could. And that's the paradox. You agreed to forget, so you could remember for real. The living consciousness of planet Earth, or Gaia, also agreed to the experiment. She didn't sign up to watch her children fall asleep forever. She's been leaving signs, nudges, and reminders all along, knowing that one day we'd be ready to see them. These clues don't come as a booming voice in the sky. They're subtle. They're in the moments you've brushed off as coincidence, but that were anything but. The pull you feel towards certain places or people. The reason you can meet someone for the first time yet feel like you've known them forever. Those are soul memories slipping through the cracks in the veil. That strange sense of déjà vu? It's not just a brain glitch. Sometimes it's your soul brushing up against a moment it planned long before you were born. A little checkpoint you're meant to notice. Other times, it's something stranger. You're catching up to another version of yourself in a parallel timeline, one who has already lived this exact moment. When the timelines overlap, even for a split second, the memory bleeds through. That's why it feels so real, because in some version of you, it is a memory. And then there's that ache in your chest when you hear a truth you can't explain. It's not sadness, it's recognition. Your heart remembers what your mind forgot, and for a moment, the veil thins just enough for you to feel the weight and the beauty of what's real. Gaia built these moments into the fabric of life here. The sound of waves that calms you without reason. The night sky that stirs something ancient inside you. The way certain symbols, even ones you don't know, feel strangely familiar. The ones who built the grid tried to bury these signs under noise, distraction, and fear. But Gaia has always been louder than their control, if you know how to listen. And no matter how deep the forgetting went, these breadcrumbs were designed to survive. Because you were never meant to stay lost. The clues have always been here. You've just been trained to overlook them, and to believe that only what you can see, hear, touch, taste, or measure is real. But reality is far wider than the five senses, and the parts you've been told to dismiss are often the ones that matter most. But now, the training is wearing off. The old contracts, the ones your soul agreed to before you came here, are reaching their natural expiration. The frequency of Gaia is rising, and the structures that held the veil in place are fracturing. The grid is no longer impenetrable. The interference is no longer absolute. This isn't because they have decided to let you go. It's because the energy on this planet is changing faster than their systems can adapt. The old control mechanisms were built for a denser Earth, a slower vibration. But as Gaia's frequency accelerates, their technology, their manipulations, their fear programs can't keep up. You are remembering not because someone is handing the truth back to you, but because your very cells are tuning to a higher signal. And in that higher signal, their voice grows weaker while yours grows louder. You start hearing yourself again, the real you. We are not waiting for a rescue. We are remembering how to rescue ourselves. You've been told your whole life that the world works a certain way, that you are small, that you are separate, that power belongs to someone else. But as Gaia rises, those stories start to crack. The fear that used to grip you doesn't land the same way anymore. The heaviness you've carried for years begins to lift in moments you can't explain. Even your dreams feel different, more vivid, more real than the so-called real world. This is not random. This is what it feels like when the spell starts to break. The control systems know this. They can feel the tide turning. That's why they're louder now, more desperate, because they know they're losing their hold. But here's the truth they never wanted you to remember. You don't need to fight your way out. You just need to wake up. Once you remember who you are, the whole structure collapses from the inside. This isn't a prophecy. This isn't a threat. It's a reminder. The contracts are ending. The ones you made before you stepped into this body. The ones that said you'd forget who you are, just long enough to play the game. The ones that agreed you'd live inside the veil until the moment came to wake up. And here's the truth. The more you remember, the less power the pyramid has. Because you were never meant to be a permanent prisoner. The amnesia was a temporary agreement, a role you played in a much bigger story. The Archons, the reptilian custodians, the human controllers, even the rogue AI, they've all played their part in keeping the dream running. They wove the net. They maintained the fear. They built the walls in your mind. But walls can't hold when the ground beneath them shakes. This is your recall. Your signal to step out of their structure and into your own. The pyramid only stands if you keep carrying its weight. And you didn't come here to hold it up. You came here to dismantle it. The veils are thinning, the grid is cracking, and you are remembering. This isn't about fighting the layers we've named. It's about becoming so sovereign, so lit from within, that their structure can't hold around you. The moment you see the design, you are no longer fully inside it. And that's how it ends, one awakened human at a time. We know. What you've heard today, Archons, reptilians, rogue AI, might sound unbelievable, even a little crazy at first. Our intention isn't to scare you. It's to shine light on what's been hidden, so you can take what resonates as truth and use it to empower your awakening. You don't have to believe every word. Only follow the pieces that speak to your deepest knowing. If this message sparked something within you, follow the thread, like, subscribe, and share your experience in the comments. Your voice creates ripples. Your story matters. Let others know they're not imagining things. They're awakening.